Bonjour, hello, welcome to the National Press Theatre's alternate location. I'm Elizabeth Thompson with CBC News. With us today, avec nous aujourd'hui, on a le Deputy PM Chrystia Freeland, Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, François-Philippe Champagne, Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, Sean Fraser, and the President of the Treasury Board, Anita Anand. They will be making statements followed by about 20 minutes of questions, and they do have to be out of here by about 2 o'clock. So, ministers.
Okay, thank you very much. Bonjour. La semaine dernière, j'ai eu l'honneur
Good day.
de déposer le premier projet de loi
Last week, I had the honor of introducing our government's first bill of the fall, the Affordable Housing and Groceries Act. Once passed, Bill C-56 will eliminate the GST on the construction of new apartment buildings so we can build more rental housing faster.
Today, I am announcing a further ambitious step in our government's plan to make housing more affordable for Canadians. Starting today, I am increasing the annual limit for Canada mortgage bonds from $40 billion to $60 billion. Builders need access to low-cost financing. And to ensure builders have access to the financing they need to build more homes faster, we are unlocking up to an additional $20 billion from Canada mortgage bonds and directing this money to multi-unit rental projects. This financing will make it easier for builders to access financing for construction projects like apartment buildings, student housing, and seniors' residences. There is no fiscal impact for the Government of Canada as a result of this measure. This is fiscally responsible policy using the policy tools at our disposal. And this is a further measure in our broader and continuing campaign to build more homes for Canadians faster. This new measure alone, announced and implemented today, will help to build up to 30,000 additional rental units every single year. And with the removal of the GST on new rental housing, we are expecting even more demand for this financing as we work to deliver more of the rental housing that Canadians urgently need. Our plan is already having a concrete, specific impact. Just yesterday, a Toronto-based company said they are now going to build 5,000 new rental units across the country that were otherwise on hold. And with provinces including Ontario, Newfoundland and Labrador, and most recently Nova Scotia, following our lead by eliminating provincial taxes on new rentals, we will together get even more new rental housing built in Canada. Il s'agit de mesures concrètes pour construire plus de logements.
These are concrete measures to build more housing faster. We will continue to work hard to build a Canada where there is affordable housing, stable prices, as well as great careers for Canadians from coast to coast. Thank you for your support. Now, I will hand over the floor to my colleague, Sean Fraser. Mr. Fraser. Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity to provide additional comments.
If we're going to address the national housing crisis that Canada is living through, it's not enough for us to simply address one project at a time. We need to change the way that homes that get built in Canada, including the financial equation that builders need to overcome. One of the obstacles that home builders are facing, and talk to them, they'll tell you what their challenges are. There's an increased cost of supplies and materials. The cost of labor has gone up. Access to land has become a challenge given the price in cities. And of course, as a result of global inflation, the rate of interest has gone up as well. I actually began my day early this morning on a construction site with a developer in the city who's benefiting from the rental construction financing initiative, who is building an awesome project next to a transit on the LRT line, 30% affordable units for families, the rest market-based in the city close to services. What they told me during my visit was the number one thing that they can use help with is access to financing at a rate that allows projects to go ahead. Right now, there are hundreds of thousands of units in this country that have been approved, that have a builder who wants to build, that actually has a workforce to build them if the financing can work. But as a result of those increased costs I've discussed, a lot of those projects that were previously going to go ahead have been put on the shelf. The good news is we can change the equation. There's things that we can do. Removing the GST on the construction of new apartments is an extraordinary example of how federal policy can actually change that equation for home builders. It's wonderful to see the same news that Minister Freeland referred to, with a home builder announcing 5,000 new homes are going to be constructed as a result of this single federal policy change. But I've seen other similar stories. Within days of that announcement, we had developers announce 3,000 units would go ahead. We had others announce that 1,000 units would go ahead. Yesterday, 5,000 units. This is happening right across the country as a result of the policy change. And others still are announcing projects that were going to be condominiums are now going to be constructed for rent, so more people can access them at a price they can afford, given the incentives that we put in place. There's more we can do to help change that equation. And today's changes to the Canada Mortgage Bond Program are going to make it more appealing for builders who have projects that are marginal, that have been yellow lighted, that now can be greenlit, that now can go ahead. The way that this program works is that we take the risk out of the equation for lenders. By stepping up our securitization, we can provide insurance, so there's not as much risk on the financial institutions who lend the money, which allows them to lend at a lower rate, knowing that they're going to recoup something on the investments that they're making in projects. When lenders pass on a favorable rate to builders, builders build more homes. It's as simple as that. When we shift this equation, we're going to see a lot of projects that have been sitting on the shelf are going to result in projects that have shovels in the ground. I should mention as well that there's more to this than just changing the financial equation. We also need to address other challenges that have led us to the position that we're in today, including the way that cities build homes. I've had the opportunity to work with the Housing Accelerator Fund to incentivize cities to change the way that they're building homes. You will have seen our announcement in the City of London a couple of weeks ago. It's going to lead to a few thousand more homes in their community by virtue of changes that they're making to the way that homes will be permitted, adoption of e-permitting processes, zoning density near transit stations, near post-secondary education campuses. You've seen the City of Calgary signal in the middle of their debate that they recognize the federal funding through the Housing Accelerator Fund was in jeopardy, and it was as a result of their decision that they would take. And thankfully, the City of Calgary has embraced change, has embraced densification, and I look forward to my next visit, hopefully in short order, to share good news with the City of Calgary. The reality is this is playing out across the country. Actually, as we sit here in this room, in my home province of Nova Scotia, councillors with the Halifax Regional Municipality are debating the extent to which they're going to change the way that homes get built in order to tap into the federal funding that we are making available. You're going to see in every region of this country that federal leadership and federal funding can actually drive change at other levels of government. Our message to builders today is that it's time to get shovels in the ground. We are going to leverage all of the tools at our disposal to make it easier for you to say yes, to build more homes for Canadians. We're going to address the specific challenges at the root of the housing crisis we're living through. And today's announcement is one more way that we are shifting the financial equation for builders so they can greenlight those projects that otherwise would have sat on the shelf. With that, I'm happy to turn the floor over to my friend and colleague, François-Philippe.
Merci, Sean. Bonjour tout le monde.
Thank you, Sean. Good day, everyone. Look, I'm pleased to see you. As you know, the cost of living is the #1 issue for Canadians throughout the country. Of course, we know that the cost of food is a concern, a great concern to Canadians. Every day, Canadians are facing grocery costs increases, and we took measures already last week. You may recall that on September 18th last week, I was meeting with the major grocers from all over the country, so Sobeys, Loblaws, Metro, Costco, and Walmart. And at that point, I expressed the frustration, if you will, of 40 million Canadians and said, you have to help us stabilize prices to make life more affordable for Canadians throughout the country.
In addition to that, as you would have seen yesterday, I met with the large multinational in the food sector. I'm talking about companies of the size of Nestle, Unilever. I'm talking about Kraft. And they came here, and I told them in no uncertain terms the same kind of frustration that Canadians are seeing. And my message to them was, Canadians expect you to be part of the solution. And I must say that the appeal that I made on behalf of Canadians was heard. I would say that they recognize the challenge that is faced by Canadians. They recognize also that they need to be supporting the initiative of the government. And lastly, that they want to be part of the solution. And we're going to be continuing, obviously, monitoring that with them. But I said, you have to be very public in how you think you're going to support the government, but also make concrete measures to help Canadians. Ce matin, j'avais la chance de
This morning, I had an opportunity to meet with the major
des
Canadian
gens comme,
manufacturers,
Maple Leaf,
people like
de Cavendish Farms.
Maple Leaf,
This was
Cavendish
really about
Farms.
Canada. You know, I appealed to them. The CEOs were here in town. Et je leur disais, écoutez, vous
And I said to them, look, you also have to be part of the solution. First of all, we have to understand the issues. I think everyone does understand that the issue of the cost of living and groceries is a significant issue. And I said it's important for them to be part of the solution.
Have to come also with concrete measures to support the work that we've been asking from the large retailers in this country. As you know, the Prime Minister has been clear. We're expecting very detailed plans in order to stabilize prices in Canada. And my message to the large manufacturers, both internationally and domestically, was we want you to be part of that solution. And I think, Canadians are going to be watching. We also want competition to play there to make sure that Canadians would have an outcome, a very concrete outcome from these discussions. I'm encouraged by the constructive nature. They are not easy discussions, I must tell you. All of them lasted about 2 hours in terms of setting the expectation and also explaining what Canadians expect and what we expect. But the positive line and bottom line is that they have agreed to work with the government, they have agreed to support the initiative, and they have agreed to be public in terms of what they're going to do to help Canadians. So we're going to keep fighting. Every day is a good day to fight for Canadians, and we're going to keep the fight. And with that, I'll pass it on to my dear colleague, Minister Anand. Merci.
Okay, I think Anita is just going to be available to answer questions, but has no comments. Elle a changé. Okay.
Okay.
Go
All
for
right,
it.
it is time for questions. C'est le temps des questions. Une question, un suivi. Puis, continue qu'il y a pas mal de nouveaux mondes.
One question, one follow-up. Given that there are many new people in the room, please provide your name.
I don't recognize. So if you can, say your name and your media when I call upon you. First question, Greg Quinn, Market News International.
Minister, on the program itself, it says this program is up for elimination, so that's something that could make them, or to be folded into the regular program of government borrowing. So it seems like you're trying to sell securities to investors, and in a way, they might not be that attractive. So how much is this really going to help the housing market?
So the two initiatives are entirely separate. You're quite right that we announced in the budget a consultation on the Canada Mortgage Bond Program and on whether it should be consolidated into the broader Canada bond issuance. We have undertaken the first stage of that consultation and are now reviewing the submissions that we've received. And I do want to assure all Canadians, and maybe more specifically market participants, that this is something that we are doing very deliberately, very thoughtfully, very carefully, very intentionally. Quite separate from our ongoing consideration of how the Canada Mortgage Bond Program itself will work. What today's announcement means is that effective immediately, an additional $20 billion will be made available for the multi-unit loan insurance program. And making that money available at a time when we have taken a measure just last week by lifting the GST on new rental construction, and therefore we're already seeing more demand for financing of new rental construction. What this measure does is it immediately enables CMHC to be providing more multi-unit rental loan insurance.
Secondly, on another topic, do you understand why it would be unsatisfying for many Canadians to be asked to believe that one person can direct a standing ovation in Parliament and at a time when we're supporting Ukraine and putting our own soldiers in danger in Eastern Europe?
What happened was completely unacceptable and a really, really damaging event for communities in Canada, particularly our Jewish community, and around the world, particularly for our friends in Ukraine. As the speaker said, he alone took this initiative, and neither the government of Canada nor the government of Ukraine was informed in advance. House leaders have been meeting to discuss the situation, and speaking now for myself as a member of Parliament, because the Speaker is chosen by members of Parliament, and this is a parliamentary institution, but speaking for myself, I hope and believe that the Speaker will reflect on how truly serious and damaging this error was, and will do the honorable thing. C'est vraiment
It is really a situation and an issue
très, très terrible.
which is terrible and very difficult for communities throughout Canada, starting with our Jewish community. It is also a terrible situation elsewhere in the world, starting with our friends, the courageous people and the government of Ukraine. As the House Speaker said, it was his initiative. He did not inform neither the government of Canada nor the government of Ukraine ahead of time that this was going to happen.
Je pense que, et maintenant je vais parler dans ma capacité en tant que
And now I will speak in my capacity as a member of Parliament,
président de la Chambre des communes est choisi par tous les députés.
because the Speaker of the House of Commons is selected by all members. This is not an institution that is part of the executive branch. And as a member of Parliament,
J'espère fortement
I sincerely hope
qu'il va se réfléchir
that he will reflect
et qu'il va faire la chose
on this and do the right thing, do the honorable thing.
Okay. Next question, prochaine question, front row at the end.
Hey, thanks. Marco Vigliati, iPolitics. I was just wondering, a quick question about how quickly Canadians can expect this new kind of stream of financing to enter the market. I understand that the limit's been increased, and there seems to be, or your suggestion, there seems to be some considerable demand amongst investors for these bonds. So how quickly can we expect that money to actually flow through the multi-unit program?
Right away. The advantage of this step is we're just adding some juice to a program that already exists. We don't have to invent new things. We simply will have more financing available for a program which we know already works and is already playing an essential, even fundamental role in the multi-unit rental construction market. What today's announcement means is there is more financing available, going from 40 to 60 billion. And we believe that that is both useful and frankly necessary given the additional demand for financing that we're already seeing as a result of the Prime Minister's announcement about lifting the GST that he made in London, Ontario. So this is up and running. It's an existing program. What we're really saying to builders across Canada is CMHC is open for business. We want you to build more new purpose-built rental now. We have lifted the GST completely, and financing is fully available.
And just as a follow-up, this multi-unit rental program administered by the CMHC, is applicable to all rental construction, or is it limited only to affordable rental housing?
I'll start, and then maybe Sean wants to carry on because of the CMHC side of it. This is a broad program, and this is about encouraging purpose-built rental construction. And we really, as with our GST measure, we do think a big part of the answer to the housing challenge in Canada is supply, 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 build, build, build. Clearly, we think we also need targeted measures to encourage affordable supply specifically, including deep affordability. But our view is the challenge in housing is a lot bigger than deeply affordable only. Deeply affordable is an important area of challenge, but this is a challenge across the housing spectrum. And so we're putting in place tools that go across the housing spectrum. And then, furthermore, we really believe that creating more housing full stop actually improves the situation across the entire spectrum, including in the deeply affordable area. And Sean may have more to add.
Yeah, so to answer your question, it's for multi-unit residential with at least 5 units. One of the things that you have to appreciate is that the program offers dynamic financing opportunities depending on the particular lender's position and preference, and depending on the terms that they may reach with an individual builder. I look at the MLI Select program, which this could potentially be impacted by, that offers a sliding scale of treatment for the builder based on features like the affordability, the sustainability, or the accessibility of a given development. But one of the reasons why you want to have a broad-based set of financial incentives across different kinds of units is to reflect the change in the way that home builders are actually taking projects on. I mentioned the project that I visited this morning that is a mixed market rate and affordable rate units. And there's no difference between the units within the building. The way that a mixed unit project will allow more affordable homes to get built is if you can actually have incentives that apply to the entirety of the project. If you limit the incentives only to low income housing, the kind of communities you build have certain portions of the community that have buildings that are exclusively for lower income families that tend not to get the attention, that tend not to be located near the services people need to access. If you actually talk to home builders about the kinds of projects that there's a demand for that help build vibrant communities, they need an incentive that allows, that has application to market and non-market units, so they can justify a project that has a nice mix. When Minister Freeland mentioned the home builder that has announced they're going to be building 5,000 new homes, one of the projects is 43% affordable. If they didn't have a broad-based GST program, they would be constructing 0 affordable units. It's really important that we look across the housing continuum and not only put forward measures that build supply, but build the right kind of supply that don't segregate people from their community on the basis of their level of income.
Okay. Next question, the gentleman in the second row.
Jeremy Charles, CTV News. On what happened in the House on Friday, could you speak to the impact this has had on Ukrainian Canadians?
What happened was really terrible and really damaging. It was damaging to communities across Canada, first and foremost, the Jewish community, but damaging for us all.
As a follow-up, there are calls by B'nai B'rith to reopen a report by the Duchesne Commission so that Canadians can know how many veterans who fought with the Nazis are here in our country. Will the government do so, and what is your response to that?
I think, let me just start by reiterating, and I don't think it can be said too many times, how hurtful for so many people in Canada and around the world what happened was and has been and continues to be. As MPs, in our capacity as MPs, it's important for appropriate next steps in the House to be taken, and I think that is our immediate focus. And as a government, we're going to be very thoughtful about any further steps that need to be taken.
Prochaine question, première rangée, Radio-Canada, je crois.
Oui, Juliane Lapointe de Radio-Canada.
Madame Freeland, the error committed last Friday, is it reparable? We see what this can mean in terms of Canada's image abroad, and given your Ukrainian origins, what do you think we need to do to get out of this situation?
Comme j'ai juste dit,
As I just said,
c'est vraiment, un événement
this really, really is
pas regrettable, terrible,
beyond a regrettable and actually a terrible event.
qui est très, très difficile, très douloureuse.
This is very difficult. It is very painful. I will start with Canadian communities. I think it's important to start with the Jewish community.
On comprend ça et on doit souligner
We understand this,
ça
and
ici chez nous.
that has to be said clearly here in Canada. You are right.
Aussi un événement douloureux,
This is
difficile,
also a painful and a difficult
surtout pour
state of affairs internationally,
peuple courageux.
especially for the courageous people of Ukraine.
Et c'est important pour nous en tant
It is important for us as members of parliament. I'm speaking for myself and for all of us as members of parliament. It is important for us to do the right thing in our House of Commons. That is how we start repairing this major mistake.
Et on blâme qui là-dedans?
And who is to be blamed for this? Is Mr. Rhoda himself directly responsible for this? Do you blame anyone else?
Le président de la Chambre des communes
The Speaker of the House of Commons himself
était très clair
was
que c'était
quite
sa
clear.
décision,
It was his decision,
et qu'il n'a pas informé ni le
and
gouvernement
he stated that he did not inform the government of Canada
en avance.
nor the government of Ukraine ahead of time.
C'est première rangée.
First row.
QMI. Je veux savoir, est-ce que vous, personnellement, est-ce que vous êtes entré en contact avec
Did you
vos
personally
homologues ou des gens en Ukraine par
contact
rapport à cette situation-là? Est-ce que le gouvernement devrait, même si c'est
people
la
in
responsabilité
Ukraine
de
at
M.
your
Rota,
level or
devrait
others
s'excuser quand même pour
about
réparer les
this?
pots cassés?
And should there be an apology issued?
C'est vraiment, vraiment une grave erreur.
It is really
Vraiment.
a very serious and grave mistake, a very painful
Et je pense que la question était
situation for us, and I think the question was the right one.
Canadiens et Canadiens. On doit commencer
We
avec les
are Canadians. We need to start with Canadians, and for this reason, as far as I am concerned, I start by highlighting that this is a very difficult situation, that is a painful situation for the communities in Canada, specifically starting with the Jewish community. It is also a painful situation for the courageous people of Ukraine that we support, that we have supported, and that we will continue to support. Our government, myself, and other people within government are in constant contact with the leaders of the government of Ukraine, and we will continue to be.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur
Thank you very much, Mr. Champagne.
Avec toutes les rencontres que vous faites,
Given all of the
à chaque
meetings
rencontre,
you've
les
had,
attentes vont monter.
every meeting will lead to higher expectations. What will mean that you will be able, what will lead you to be able to say that you're satisfied with the work that's been accomplished? There's no deadline really to this yet,
Clairement, quelle sera la mesure
or in sight.
qui,
What will
ou
be
peut-être le critère qui va vous permettre
the
de
measure
dire, je suis satisfait.
or the criteria you've set to be able to say you're satisfied? First of all, an action is not an option. You know, when I met people in Shawinigan at the grocery store, I heard people say, listen, Mr. Champagne, keep going because at least you're fighting for us. The cost of groceries, there's inflation. Well, people are saying, great, there's a government in place that is doing things here. The Prime Minister was very clear. He called on major grocers to stabilize prices in Canada. He wants specific plans that will be presented in government by Thanksgiving. And we include everyone when we look at the complexity of the supply chain. The solution is not only up to these major grocers. You also have to discuss with these major multinational corporations that are part of the supply chain. We also have to speak to those that are in Canada. When I was speaking to representatives from McCain's and Cavendish to the table, we need to speak with these people. I've always wanted to have a Team Canada approach behind this. And look, we also have to look at what's happening elsewhere. I say, listen, it's the benefit to you to work with us. Look at what's happening in France, in the UK, in Australia. We need to work together in this chain. I don't think I'm increasing expectations. On the contrary, I'm saying, look, we're fighting to reach concrete, tangible results. We've asked for plans. We're going to get them. I am also aware of the fact that every time we meet with groups like this, it helps us to rebalance the equation. Everyone has a part to play. My message is, first of all, the frustration of 40 million Canadians. And second, I say you have to be a part of the solution. And third, It's to your advantage to work with us. It's not just the Prime Minister or the Canadian government. We're talking about your consumers. You're talking to 40 million consumers. And once you take certain measures, they will choose. I talk about the issue of competition. Once we discuss the objective, then it's up to them to see how they want to get there. I can assure you that if you had been at the meeting yesterday, they were competing on specific goods. They might say, okay, I'll act on this good, and others say something else. What I expect is for them to take tangible, concrete measures for Canadians. We want to stabilize the cost of groceries in Canada, and we'll continue to meet with everyone we need to meet in order to help Canadians in this time of need. And I think people understand this is not easy. This is complex. But at the same time, we need to push to get tangible action, and that's what we're doing at the moment. Any further questions?
Hi, Judah Amelie's Canadian Press. This question is on today's announcement, so Minister Freeland or Minister Fraser can answer. So this is aimed at increasing the amount of financing that's available, low-cost financing. But I've spoken to developers and nonprofits, and another concern is not only the financing available, but at what interest rate? And interest rates have been rising. Is your government planning on doing anything to reduce the rate of interest that these folks are paying even lower than it is right now?
So that is a great question. And that's actually what is so great about this program. What this program allows is that the interest rate that developers who use the program pay is typically between 100 and 200 basis points lower than a conventional mortgage. So that's 1 or 2% lower. And that's the reason why this program, and then if you combine it with the GST being totally lifted, this is what is making it possible for projects that would otherwise not get off the ground to get off the ground. The program already exists. It is foundational to multi-unit rental construction in Canada. We know that it's going to become even more important, both because interest rates are elevated, and so to build without using this program, without using the CMHC mortgage loan insurance is very challenging. And also because having lifted the GST, we are already seeing new projects get underway, and this is to ensure that the financing is available for those projects. Sean, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure, and I accept wholeheartedly Chrystia's explanation. I think she summed it up well. But just to clarify how this program will actually work, the reason that it's going to result in a reduction in interest rates is because it changes the risk profile for lenders. The individual project that will be financed, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, the interest rate can vary from one builder, from one project to another based on different risk factors. What today's announcement does is guarantees the certain and timely repayment of principal and interest for insured mortgages, which actually brings down the risk profile for the lender. The lender with a reduced risk profile is able to offer competitively terms at lower rates for builders as a result of the increased securitization that the federal government's establishing today. So it may not be a lending program itself, but we know because we already have $40 billion in the program that people who secure financing through this stream receive typically a significantly lower interest rate. And over the course of a major project worth $100 million, you can see very quickly that 100 to 200 basis points is going to potentially save home builders millions of dollars, combined with the GST measures that we've introduced to bring the total cost of the project significantly down, that will allow them to overcome the recent increase in interest rates and the cost of supplies, materials, the cost of land, et cetera. So this is a way to change the system that will offer in a more uniform way lower rates for all projects that benefit from it. This is in addition to direct lending programs that we offer through the federal government, including the Rental Construction Financing Initiative. When we recently were in Vancouver, I announced a suite of projects that are going to be advanced with the support of that program. $500 million in lending at far lower rates than are available on the market. And the reason we use that program to give lower rates is to extract commitments from builders to build certain kinds of homes. In response to a previous question, it's important we have additional incentives to build affordable homes, homes near services, homes near post-secondary institutions. So we've advanced the GST measure to reduce the taxes that people pay. We've increased the securitization, which is going to bring down the rates that people can get in the private markets. And we also have our low-cost financing that's available to people who build certain kinds of homes that have a particular percentage that will be offered at below market values. Every step of the way, we're seeking to change the financial equation for home builders to influence them to say yes to projects that have been put on the shelf as a result of the more expensive landscape that they're operating in now. If we continue to advance measures, we can further bring down the cost of building, and home builders will put up more homes for Canadians.
If I can just add one thing very quickly, as Sean has been saying, an important way that we have been approaching this challenge is to understand we need to change the financial equation, to change the incentives, to get more, to pull more private capital in to the building of homes in Canada. This is part of that effort. It is quite technical. And so what I just wanted to add is, if there is an appetite either of individual journalists or a collective appetite, we'd be happy to set up a technical briefing on how the multi-unit mortgage loan insurance works. Could do that later this week.
That would be great. But just to clarify for my first question, my point was
you
that...
just had two questions, I think.
Sure, okay. I'll follow up with your staff later.
Okay.
I'm just going to do my second question, though. Great. This question's from my colleague. It's from Minister Freeland. It's about the Trans Mountain Pipeline. A decision to allow the pipeline to move routes appears to have been done for the sake of speed and convenience, not because the alternate route was not feasible. And it was also done against the expressed wishes and consent of a First Nation who the route impacts. Does this mean reconciliation only happens when it's convenient?
So let me just say, this was a ruling from the independent regulator, and Trans Mountain has already commented on the ruling.
Okay, I understand the ministers have to get to the House, but thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.